everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Geekorama podcast, the podcast by geeks for geeks. We are produced by superherofiction.com, the one-stop shop for all your superhero novel needs, and now the largest website dedicated to superhero fiction. We are your hosts.
I'm Jeremy Flagg, writer of the Children of Notre Dame's universe.
And I am T.L. Heinrich, author of the Vigilantes universe. What are we talking about this week, Remy?
For this week's episode, we have decided to get all sorts of mushy, and we are going to be talking about superheroes in love. So for this one, we're going to focus on actual couples that exist in comics, TV, movies. But yeah, it's going to be... Actually, yours are a lot more mushy. Mine are a lot more sinister.
That kind of fits us.
Yeah. I feel that's our relationship in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, basically.
All
right.
Before we even get started, because I keep forgetting to mention this, did you realize that it's less than a week until our romance anthology comes out?
Actually, by the time this show airs, it's going to be 2 days. 2 days!
We are already, we are way too excited about this. So we've gotten more pre-orders on it than we could have possibly anticipated. And we're already starting to get some good feedback on it. So we are really stoked. So if you love romance, a whole lot of steam, I'm just going to say it, and superheroes, then this is your sexy nighttime read that needs to go on your Kindle.
There's only there is a sweet romance section, but I think there's only 3 stories. The rest are steamy and erotic. And they are clearly labeled so if you don't like one of those kinds, then you can skip that section. But yeah, I'm very excited. It's a good anthology, and I love the cover. The cover is so pretty.
So yeah, it comes out on Valentine's Day because we're complete and utter saps. Yeah.
So treat yourself. Get yourself a little something. All right. So Jeremy, what is on your pull list this week?
Okay, so I wound up having to do 2. So I'll be really quick with them. I wanted to read a Black Widow story. It's not a character I know much about. The movie's coming out someday. So on the Marvel Unlimited app, it suggested here's a Black Widow story. And I was like, okay, perfect. And the first one is Black Widow, Widow Sting by Macchio Duofontino and Rosenberg. That's a mouthful. And it was made to be like a one-off comic. So what I have a sneaking suspicion is that this comic was released for the masses to prep people for the movie. So it is a crappy story with a crappy plot, with crappy writing, and just horrible. It should never have existed. So don't read it. We only go down to a 1 cape, but I'm still giving this 0 capes because it wasted my time.
Valid. Totally valid.
But afterwards, it suggested, why don't you read Black Widow #1 in the 2020 run? And I was like, okay, one more shot, Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is by Thompson, Carasagrand, and Belair. And this run of Black Widow gives us a mystery. It's not force-feeding us narration. I was curious to see what was happening. And there's clearly misdirection happening, and I have no idea where the plot's going. But there's also the Avengers pop up. So there's a cameo by Captain America, and Hawkeye will somehow serve the plot. But Natasha's gone missing for several months, which she does a lot. And the Avengers are worried. And it's funny because some of them are worried, but at the same time, Hawkeye's like, how is this different than last time she did this? They're acknowledging that she has an independent world outside of the Avengers. And I really like that. The fact that her tie to the Avengers is still there, but she's kind of going on her own adventures. It's very much what happens to Wolverine and X-Men. So I'm really enjoying it. I don't know where the plot's going, and I want to know more. So this one gets 4 capes out of 5 because the writing was good. The artwork is fantastic. Not my typical style, but still really pretty to look at. And the actual story is so far captivating. There's only 2 issues out so far, so
okay, awesome.
It's going on my weekly poll or my monthly poll list now. So
right on.
What about you? What have you been reading?
So I like to read before going to sleep. So I don't generally like to read novels because I'll do like, oh, just 1 chapter, and then 5 chapters, 6 chapters later, I'm still awake. So what I like to do is I'll do like biographies or anthologies, or, just these books that have a collection of vignettes or something like that. So I've been reading Warriors, Witches, Women, Mythology's Fiercest Females by Kate Hodges. And this is a collection of just short little snapshots of exactly what it says: warriors, women, witches, goddesses, basically just people from mythology. And it's a very broad-ranging collection. I love mythology. I was obsessed with Greek and Egyptian mythology in school. I used to be able to tell you the Egyptian family tree of the gods, which I don't know why I felt compelled to memorize that, but I did. And so, but what she did in here is she went like worldwide and very deep. There are some voodoo goddesses. There are goddesses from China, Japan. There are Hindu goddesses. There are Sumerian ones. I would say about half of them are people I've never even heard of. There's Celtic, there's Scandinavian, all kinds. And it's fascinating. The artwork is really unique. I feel like there's a couple times where I'm like, no, I want to know more. And so I go and I'm looking up, more about these characters. And then there's some that are very familiar to me, like Brigid and Ma'at and, those kinds of goddesses where you're like, oh yeah, I know who this is, kind of a thing. But it's very neat. And they're very bite-sized chunks. It's like maybe 2.5, 3 pages each person or, mythological figure. And it's just perfect. So if you want something that is very bite-sized, but very interesting, and the author is able to go deep without waxing poetic about all, going into the weeds. This is just perfect. And like I said, it's a beautiful hardback book. If you have somebody in your life that's a total nut about mythology, like I am, this is just perfect. Because it'll really broaden, like I said, it broadened my horizons and views and knowledge of mythology. And now I am really curious about Japanese and Chinese and Scandinavian. Like it's a really neat book. I honestly, with the writing and the artwork, I would give it 5 out of 5 capes.
I'm kind of curious if superhero fans, if that's a common thread, because if you think about it, like I was really into Greek mythology, and they're kind of the heroes of another culture.
Yeah. Like superheroes, American mythology.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So I feel like there must, that Venn diagram must have a huge overlap.
I think it must, yeah. And I would say if you like superheroes, actually, you would like this because she couches each vignette in a heroic way. Even ones that are there's a few very problematic characters in there, but she tells you why they're heroic to the people that follow them and why they were important to the culture. And it's super interesting. I really highly recommend it. And not an ebook. Do not get this in an ebook. Get it in a physical book because you won't be able to appreciate the artwork otherwise.
Okay. And if you want more book suggestions, stop by superherofiction.com and you can check out our editorial reviews.
Yes.
So what are you geeking out about this week?
So I went back to something that I've seen before, but I'm needing comfort food right now. I'm needing familiar. And so on Amazon Prime, they have the entire Ugly Betty series. You can watch it with some commercial interruptions, which is really annoying that I just mute them and then go get up and get some more wine. But Ugly Betty, for those of you that don't know, Salma Hayek was the executive producer. She took probably the most popular telenovela of all time, and she converted it into American sitcom.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it is one of the all-time most successful and popular telenovelas. Which is why, one of the reasons why telenovelas feature very prominently throughout the series. Like Betty's dad loves his stories. It's very adorable. It focuses on Betty Suarez and her family. They're a Mexican-American family living in Queens. She has big dreams about becoming a writer, and right out of getting out of Queens College, she goes and interviews at a job for one of the premier fashion magazines, Mode. Betty is not fashionable. She has huge braces. Her hair is frizzy. She has glasses. She's considered chubby in the show, but I have to tell you, I think they're padding her because America Ferrera, who plays Betty, is not fat. And she goes to work for the playboy of the fashion world, Daniel Mead. And the drama around Mode and the Mead family and the Suarez family is very telenovela-like. If you watch them, you will recognize a lot of tropes. So the show runs up to the edge of being cheesy and chewing the scenery, and it just kind of lingers there sometimes. But it is hilarious. America Ferrera's physical comedy, her characterizations, she's hilarious, but it's also a show with a lot of heart and a lot of care. It's one of the first shows to feature a prominent transgender character and talk about her transition and talk about the family life, although I will say it uses some very problematic language around that. It was the early 2000s, and so yeah, I was having a little bit of a hard time with it, but also, okay, it's the early 2000s, and at least they have this character who's transgender and successful and beautiful, and they discuss issues around immigration and what that's like for families going through that. There's talk about race. There's talk about one of the characters is gay and he comes out to his mom and it doesn't go well at all. Another one of the characters, Betty's nephew, is gay, and you get to see him grow up and come out and what that's like. There's a lot of heart in this show, and there's also a lot of Betty running into, windows she doesn't see, and having hot chocolate spilled all over her. I mean, it's very funny too. Vanessa Williams is in it. She plays Wilhelmina Slater, who is the evil villain bitch of the whole show. I mean, seriously evil, borderline unredeemable, honestly. Judith Light is in it. She plays Daniel's mom, and she's a recovering alcoholic. And the first two seasons, she is off the hook crazy and wonderful. But there's a lot of growth for these characters that start off incredibly selfish. There's a lot of growth for Betty. You see her and Daniel working together and helping each other really grow up, so that by the end of the show, you have these two people that are able to stand on their own 2 feet independently of one another and have a life. So I just love it. It's my happy place right now.
I just remember, I've only seen a handful of episodes. The set design for that show is bonkers.
Yeah, it really is. Mode and then the Suarez family home, it couldn't be more different.
And Mode is like no building like that exists anywhere. Just
no.
It's so illogical, and it makes for such good TV.
It does. I love the tube hallway from the reception desk is shaped like a donut. And then you have essentially a tube hallway that leads to the rest of the office space. And it's just nutty.
Speaking of telenovelas, did you ever watch the show Telenovela?
No, I didn't. I've never even heard of it.
It stars. Oh, I'm gonna forget her name. She was in Desperate Housewives with the woman from Ugly Betty.
Oh, Eva Longoria
Yes.
and America Ferrera.
And it is the funniest thing because the entire show is about the cast making a telenovela. And the telenovela drama doesn't ever get as much as the real life drama.
Yeah.
It got canceled, but it is so worth the watch. It is hilarious.
I will have to look it up then. But yeah, Ugly Betty, if you're looking for a comedy that it's funny, it's full of heart, it's got really different characters that you're not going to see in almost any other sitcom, I highly recommend it.
I'm gonna have to put it back onto my watch list. I need a show I can binge because I'm out of binge material right now.
This is very binge worthy. It's very binge worthy.
So I couldn't have a more different geek out if I tried.
Yes, I am very curious about your geek out.
So before I even get started, so I play this stupid mobile game called Lords Mobile. And I promised my guild they would get a shout out because they I'm not kidding. They all subscribe to the channel now. These people from all over the world, they're so weird. It's so much fun.
That is delightful.
But they keep stalking me when I do live writing sessions. And because we're all in a group text, they're like, he's on camera. Go watch. You're also weird. So,
hi, Guild.
Hi, Guild. D1 Guild, specifically Nyx and Gucci.
Nice.
Yes. We currently have renamed our entire guild as characters from Lion King. So this is what I do in my free time.
That's awesome.
But my actual geek out is awesome Korean cinema because I love Korean cinema. It's so not American. It's weird. It's interesting. I could go on and on about Train to Busan 1 and 2. I love it. I love it. But this one is Space Sweepers. It came out of nowhere onto Netflix. And you're like, okay, it's about people in outer space doing space things. Okay, sure. So it is an entirely Korean produced Netflix movie, but it's funny because majority of the people speak English because it's an intergalactic thing and they all speak different languages. So it was so confusing trying to get the subtitles and it was freaking us out. But essentially it's about this crew and they work on a junker, and there's so much space trash in this world. And their job is to stop the space trash from destroying the satellites, the colonies that are in outer space just outside Earth's atmosphere. And most of them are earthbound people who get transported to space to work their day jobs.
Oh, wow.
Earth is falling apart, and the main character's goal is to colonize Mars, and he's learned how to something, whatever, the whole planet. And people are like, well, if you can do that there, why don't you go fix Earth? And stop dumping your space trash here. And so this story is happening, and it sets up a really cool world. But what is the tone of this movie? It starts off being really sci-fi. The main character is looking for his lost, I think, daughter at the time. And it feels really dismal. And then all of a sudden, they're on the ship, and we couldn't lean into character archetypes any harder if like you pulled it out of the TV guide. So on this particular ship, there's him he's kind of inconsequential. He's literally the least important. But the pilot is this young woman who she'll take risk and do anything it takes to. You're just like, there's a good like 15-minute scene showing just how badass she is. And then there's the grunt who's like the fighter, and he makes the ship work, and he's a tough guy, but he's heart of gold. And so it's so over the top. And because Korean cinema tends to be over the top, it's hard to tell, like, is this intentional or am I just misinterpreting? And of course, there's a robot who works on their ship. Why? I don't really know.
Because robots.
And it looks just like the robot from Rogue One. So a little too similar. But of course, he's a sassy robot. So, and basically the plot is they're working to pay off a debt. But no matter what they do, like they turn in this ship piece of trash, and they get money for it, but they accidentally damage something, and so they go further in debt. And what it's literally showing is poor people can't get out of being poor. It's just you're forced into poorness, and being poor makes you poorer. So
it's expensive to be poor.
Yeah. And it really kind of harps on this message. And meanwhile, there's a young girl who we don't know what her plot is, but she's being said to be a bomb. And then when she comes into it, it's very like, how do people all react now with this young girl? She's like 6 or 7. And now you get to see the heart of Korean cinema, because they created this like high octane world, but Korean cinema is very much about an emotional film and it has to end on a positive note. Like it's kind of a rule. And so it was like Guardians of the Galaxy drank a Red Bull and then and then had a cute subplot that really just tugged on your heartstrings, and then nothing is what it seems, and the villain comes. It's batshit crazy, but 2.5 hours of fun batshit.
We saw the trailer for this, and Dan was like, "Sweet."
You're gonna watch it and be like, "What is happening? Give me more." And it's funny because like Train to Busan was the last like kind of high octane Korean film I saw, and there is a car driving scene in that is just bonkers. It has no right being as good as it is, and when I say it's good, I would watch that scene over Mad Max any day of the week.
Oh wow.
And this movie is very much similar to that. Like you got off at the end being a little bit exhausted and kind of hoping that there was a sequel coming.
So where can people find this again?
This one is available on Netflix, so I definitely recommend it. It is not your typical story. It really pushes the archetypes, but then it likes to spin them on you. So
it's a good use of tropes.
Yeah, and halfway through the film, you figured out what's going on, and it didn't matter. Let's get there now. So, yeah, and then the plot, like, if you're a person who finds plot holes in movies, which I am, it's just one massive plot hole, but who cares? It was fun.
That's awesome.
So, I would suggest putting it on the watch list.
Cool. Well, we are going to now take a break before we go to our deep dive, which is our favorite romantic couple, Smoochy Smoochy. and we'll be right back in a few minutes.
All right.
Behind every great superhero story is a sleep-deprived author. Join Franklin Kendrick every Friday as he takes you behind the mask and asks today's hottest superhero authors the burning question we all want to know. Do they always write in spandex, or is that just a weekend thing?
So, we're back. We're going to check some romance, some smoochies.
Which is funny because I am looking at the list and yours are, okay, I do have some smooching on mine.
Yeah, you've got some good ones.
I have one smooching couple and the rest of them are tragic love stories. Unrequited love.
Nothing wrong with a tragic love story at all. Who wants to go first?
People be happy.
I know. No happy endings. Do you want to go?
Yeah, let me go first because I know your first one you have some strong feels about.
All right, you go first then.
Okay, so my first of all, mine are mostly focused on comic books. My first one, and probably the one that impacted me most throughout all of my comic book reading, is the romance between Kitty Pryde and Peter Rasputin. So Shadowcat and Colossus, who are now officially married in canon. So that took long enough. But we are going to slightly glaze over the fact that she was 13 when they first met. So,
ew.
Yeah, early on in their romance, I think she was like 14 when they, had a thing going. So we're going to glaze over that, and we'll move to the more mature coupling of them.
That's a good idea.
But I always really like this couple because she is a young person with something to prove, and he is the person who's already proved it but doesn't want it. So they make for a really kind of cool couple in the fact that they had their romance stayed really strong for the majority of them existing in the comics. There's only a small bit where they kind of have a friend zone situation. But it was just kind of an innocent, we found each other story. There's like Gambit and Rogue have this will they, won't they, like forbidden love thing going on. But Kitty Pryde and Colossus were they were sweet together. And when she gets older, in the War World event, it's the first time that she's like, yo, come hither. and you realize, oh my God, I went from being Kitty Pryde as a young person to now I'm her dad, and I'm like refusing to accept the fact she's grown up. Like, no, don't do that. And as they aged, the relationship aged with them. And I mean, she's like 23 now.
That is nice to see, though. That is really nice to see.
And she went from being this naive kid to, she owns her sexuality. She is very assertive. Like, she has probably one of the biggest growths in comics. And so when their relationship finally kind of cemented, it was like, okay, you've had your bumps and bruises along the way, but you made it. So that for me was a victory relationship. Like, yay. And so help me God, if Marvel tries to give them a divorce, I'll go kick someone's ass myself.
Yeah, you won't be the only one, I think.
Yeah. So Kitty Pryde and Peter Rasputin are my number one power couple of comicdom.
I love that.
Okay. I didn't even need to look this up. I knew who your number one was.
My number one, and mine, conversely, all of mine actually, are from TV and movies. So just putting that out there. My number one is Oliver, Queen, and Felicity smoke. And here's why. I know a lot of people that are hardcore Green Arrow fans from the comics were shocked and appalled that he did not end up with Black Canary. I, however, was relieved because the character's fine. I couldn't stand the actress that played Black Canary, so I thought this was a victory. But the other part of it is that Felicity is dorky. She's a tech genius. She knows math and algorithms, and she's a dork. And she wears glasses. And for those of us girls who grew up as a dork and wearing glasses, it felt kind of like a victory. She gets the hot guy that can do the salmon letter. Hell yeah. But other than that, I was watching a compilation video in preparation for today because while I watched almost all of Green Arrow, there were seasons and things that I didn't see. So I was watching this compilation video of their entire relationship and how it grew over the course of 8 seasons. And while I think the writers went a little overboard in trying to keep them apart, it got cringeworthy. You can see how these two helped each other grow. She helped him find his humanity and his purpose and face his demons. And he helped her grow up and own her past and own her potential. I mean, she starts off literally in the basement of Queen Consolidated, and she ends up becoming CEO of not Frost Consolidated, Queen. I said Queen Consolidated, didn't I?
Yeah.
Frost Consolidated is from my book. Anyway, sorry. But she ends up becoming a superhero in her own right. She's an essential part of the team. She gets the moniker Overwatch, which is just awesome. She becomes CEO of Queen when Oliver goes missing. She has her own agency. She has her own strength. And I would say that both of them, their sacrifice at the end of the Green Arrow storyline is very endearing, and the fact that they get to just be together in heaven or wherever Oliver is. I love it. I think they are one of the most perfect superhero power couples in TV and movies because they also respect each other. They respect one another's strengths. They respect one another's positions in the team. You know, Felicity is not about pushing back when she feels like Oliver's doing something stupid or when he's, going back to his old ways of shutting himself off. And Oliver isn't above telling Felicity when she's overstepping her boundaries, and not in a way that's like mansplaining, more in a way of you're not looking at the whole picture.
That last season for me ruined them.
Really?
The last episode went to a spot that made me happy, but
yes.
That last season leading up to it was the writers not knowing what to do with them.
Yeah, because they were finally together. Yeah, I hated that as well. And I am choosing to overlook those parts of the relationship where the writers obviously kind of fucked them over and I feel like I can do that because the core of their relationship is solid. Very early in the relationship too, you have Felicity volunteers to go undercover on missions, and you never once really have Oliver say, no, you can't, you're a girl, or diminishing her ability to do something in any way. And in fact, she's bait for a serial killer, and the cop, I forget his name, it's Laurel's dad. He's the one that has an issue. What are you thinking sending her out there? And Oliver's like, she volunteered. He's like, she can handle herself. She's fine. And while Felicity often does need rescuing, she got to the place where she could rescue herself. It was fine.
And I like that their relationship didn't have a nice bow on it either.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
No, and I did, when she became a hacktivist, I got a little bit annoyed that the writers were like, Oliver Queen, you need to all of a sudden take an issue with this because she hasn't been doing this for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
But again, people don't know what to do with a happy couple.
I know, and it drives me crazy because if you could write the shit out of any couple as a married couple, it would have been Oliver and Felicity. They were already an amazing team. You didn't need the drama that they put them through, honestly.
I think their next evolution would have been the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of
actually,
like,
yeah.
So you're a secret agent? Yeah. So you're a secret agent? Yeah. Let's go secret agent together.
Exactly. And the thing was, they were already doing that. You already had that. It was baked into the relationship. So anyway, they're my number one. I absolutely adore them. I love that the writers threw out the Black Canary thing in favor of what was obviously a more compelling couple.
And Green Arrow and Black Canary, as far as, at least for the CW, would have just been Oliver Queen dating himself.
Yeah. Well, and that actress, I'm really sorry, but
it was rough.
She didn't get better. Let's put it that way.
So they had to make her a person from an alternate reality so she could intentionally be stiff.
Yeah.
We're
just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay, who's your number two?
Okay, so my number two, we're going to go down the non-traditional rabbit hole, and it's going to be Phoenix, so Jean Grey.
Okay.
Wolverine, and Cyclops.
I am so here for this.
So, throughout the history of X-Men, there has been this trio, and they each kind of personify something different. So Jean Grey's introduction into the X-Men is really gross, and just in general, it's extremely sexist. She's only there to make the boys get hard and go climbing after her. So her existence at the beginning doesn't make sense. So eventually all the suitors get paired down to Cyclops, and they begin a very high school romance, and it's perfect. It's idyllic, and it's boring as all hell. And I mean, literally, I'm pretty sure there's an episode where he gives her his Letterman jacket. Why does he have a Letterman jacket when he goes to a school without a football team? I don't know, but he does. Oh God, I hate Cyclops. I'll just, which is funny because, yeah,
I cannot stand him.
So he and Jean Grey are living this very idyllic, innocent kind of relationship, and in comes Wolverine, and Wolverine is the trope of the bad boy, and all of a sudden we get this rivalry, which is extremely funny because Jean Grey has already made her decision. She never gives Logan inkling that, hey, you might be my new number one. Like, never is it written into a plot that she thinks, well, maybe let's do this. So Cyclops' rivalry with Wolverine is completely unfounded, which is where I believe there is sexual tension between them. So,
and you're not the only fan that thinks that either.
It lasts for, God, 30 years, 20 plus years. So we finally get versions of this relationship being turned on its head. So in one of the issues of What If Wolverine and Phoenix got together instead of Phoenix and Cyclops? And what we find out is Wolverine is actually the weaker of the two men, in the fact that when she becomes Phoenix and it's time to either let the world be destroyed or kill her, he can't do it. Whereas Cyclops stepped up to the plate because that's what Cyclops does. So we start getting these spins because the fans obviously want it. And then come Age of Apocalypse, we get Wolverine and Jeannie are together. And it's them against the world. And they are the bad boy bad girl couple, wreaking havoc wherever they go, until she meets the one-eyed wonder, which is weirdly sexual on its own. So, and I mean, he has a giant dick, so it works.
I mean, it scans, yeah.
So even in this world, their relationship starts to happen. And she doesn't side with him because, the apocalypse happens and the world gets destroyed. But you can see where that bond transcends alternate realities. Like the writers refuse to let her stay with Wolverine. So fast forward, and now the relationship is in a weird kind of place. Scott Summers and her aren't really together. Her and Wolverine aren't together, but there is weird sexual tension everywhere. So they are.
Is this the one? Isn't there one where it's like they all three live in the same house and the bedrooms are basically like one of the guys in one, one of the guys, Jean, and then another one of the guys. Like the three bedrooms are literally connected by Jean's bedroom. And it looks like it's a polyamorous relationship.
And they, for whatever anyone wants to say, their relationship is really dependent on this friction. And it lets Cyclops be a macho asshole. It lets Wolverine be a kind of a dick to Cyclops, but also a little of, what will happen here? And never do we get an outright storyline where Jean Grey in canon picks Wolverine. So I just have always found this relationship baffling, but also compelling, because you can't throw away 60 years of her relationship with Cyclops until, he throws it away, but that's a different story. So yeah, for me, it's always just been compelling. Ultimately,
absolutely.
My favorite part is when she was like, "Ugh, I'm done with it, both of you." Like,
I think putting the three of them together like that makes sense. Honestly, I've seen guys flirt the way that Wolverine treats Cyclops. I've seen guys flirt like that, and honestly, I buy them as a threesome. I just do. It makes so much more sense to me.
And I don't think anyone would question it. Like,
no.
I mean, Wolverine's son is so blatantly sexual that Dakin is literally a sex pot. Like, that is part of his power. So when it wouldn't surprise me if Dad, he's been around for 100 years. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that would be my number 2. Kind of, sort of, not really, but really. We read between the lines.
It's the subtext.
Yeah. All right. I knew this one was going to be on your list. I wasn't sure where, but I knew it would be there.
So my number 2 is Sarah Lance and Ava from Legends of Tomorrow. And now Sarah Lance has had, in my mind anyway, one of the most interesting arcs in the Arrowverse on the CW, in my opinion. She went from what was essentially kind of a one-off sub-character to being resurrected and turned into a good guy, and then being recruited to this weird show that didn't know what the heck it wanted to be. And, she wasn't the leader at the beginning. Rip was, but she really, very quickly, I feel like in the show, became a leader, but she also became a leader that was very haunted by her past and had a hard time with relationships. And we knew going in that she was bisexual because she had had a very intimate relationship with Oliver and a very intimate, loving relationship with Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Nyssa. And So we knew going into it that was it. There were inklings of her and Captain Cold maybe kind of getting it on. She and Constantine had what is hands down one of my favorite sex scenes from all of Legends, in a haunted insane asylum, because why not? It's Constantine and Sarah. But where she really started to shine, I feel like, where they did some really amazing things with her, was with Ava. And she and Ava had a rocky start. They really didn't like each other. It was two alpha females that were just like, butting heads. Ava was very strict and by the book, and Sarah, through time, came to recognize that the chaos her team thrived in was actually one of their biggest strengths. And so she was able to lead them. She was able to corral that energy. And through the course of their relationship, Ava, I feel like, brought Sarah into some balance, brought her a little bit down to earth. And conversely, Sarah gave Ava some life, gave her, helped her relax, helped her see that there was fun in doing the job, that there was fun and passion in life, and it was okay to feel those feelings. It didn't make you less of an agent or less of a person to have those connections. They were there for each other, supporting each other when both of their pasts kind of came back to haunt them, and they were having some really hard times dealing with those things. They were there for each other. It is a healthy lesbian relationship in the hands down weirdest of settings. It is just, Legends is so, it embraced its weird early, thank God. I love it for that. And in the midst of that weird, you have Ava and Sarah being the mothers, the leaders, the sisters of the group. I love it. I love it because we don't get to see enough healthy LGBTQ relationships, especially ones that do not end with one of them dying.
And I like that they weren't perfect.
No, they had their flaws. They kept their secrets, although they dumped that fairly early, thank God. They had their issues with each other, with themselves. But they helped each other grow. And those issues were never now I'm not going to like you anymore kind of a thing. It was, okay, let's help each other work through these things.
And I really like that as a lesbian couple, Ava never gave her beef about her past.
Yeah.
Like, the Constantine thing had the potential to be that annoying trope of, oh, you're not lesbian enough.
Yeah.
And no, she was able to embrace being bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And no one batted an eye at it.
No, but that's one of the things I love about the show in general, is that you have two women who are in a relationship together, and it's not a thing. It's never a thing. It just is.
What's the big dude's name?
Snart.
No. That's the ice dude.
Is it? That's the ice dude? I don't remember, but I know who you're talking about. The one that has the flamethrower. Rory.
I like his frequent comments about their relationship.
I do too.
Because he's the bonehead, the alpha male that you would think would have like derogatory comments.
Yeah.
And even he just accepts it. And he's just like, so you guys are fighting again. So it's going to be that kind of day.
Yeah.
I just like that they existed.
Yeah. And it's kind of like in the show Firefly, Jane is his doppelganger personality-wise. And in that show, they did have Jane making gross comments about lesbian relationships. But in Legends, Rory just accepts it as any other relationship. And so does everybody else. And so they're able to grow as a couple and not have it be a constant comment of two chicks doing it in the bunk. You know what I mean? Like,
when appropriate, I did appreciate Constantine stepping in and going, so this is this is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just that nice outside perspective of, oh, not everyone is as chill with it, or oh, that's a reality. Like, occasionally you have to explain to people, like, yeah, this is my partner.
Yeah. Well, and it's what I love is Constantine's also bisexual.
Yeah, and
so you have these two really powerful bisexual characters, and he might not have known that she was bi, and so that was just his moment of, oh, okay, you're bisexual, okay, and then they move on. It's not a thing.
It wasn't a plot point.
No.
Other than, though he did, I remember he did ask, so how'd you guys meet? Like, you know, he more because Constantine's a pervert.
Yeah, well, and he slept with Sarah, so I mean, you know, it's your former hookup. You're kind of curious. I get that, you know, but it wasn't a gross joke. I guess was the thing.
And I think that people would really be genuinely curious, like, oh, so this is different than what I've grown used to. So,
yeah,
story time.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I really appreciated their romance. It was probably of the Arrowverse my favorite.
Yeah, it's one of mine as well. All right, I think we have time for each of us to do one more.
Okay,
so what's your number 3?
I'm going to make my next one kind of fast because it is probably my favorite upset couple.
Ooh.
Cyclops and Emma Frost.
Oh, I've heard you talk about this before, and people hated this coupling.
I was there for it because Jean Grey and his romance was so high school. It was so unrealistic. It was so too perfect. And after 30 plus years of it, you're like, I'm bored. No more relationship stories. And then all of a sudden, you know, Jean Grey catches him telepathically slutting around with Emma Frost, who's dressed up like the Dark Phoenix. Like Cyclops. Let's talk about some issues you may have here. And their relationship was a foundation of Cyclops becoming a good character. I like him now. I never thought I would say this, but so early on, Betsy Braddock tried to seduce him, and he was like, no, I can't do this. I'm too good. But Emma Frost won. She managed to crack him and drag him down into the depths of his psyche, which for her was kind of a game. And she just wanted to destroy him from the inside out. She kind of got off on it. And somewhere along the line, she's like, oh, fuck, I like fucking with you. And their relationship was always about blunt honesty, no matter what the other person had to say, and deal with your shit. Every time Cyclops got too good boy, she was like, yo, get off your pedestal. You got some work to do.
Yep.
It was the breath of fresh air and the depth that he had been lacking since his creation. He's okay as a Boy Scout, but that's so one-dimensional. And now you have this character who is openly supporting you, taking the other road. And he gets dark. I mean, he winds up turning the X-Men in the Xavier school into a militia and marching them into a war. And when Wolverine's like, these kids need a chance to be kids, and he's like, fuck you, old man. I mean, he turns into he basically turns into Magneto. Which was amazing because Xavier, for the most part, was his father, but it was Emma Frost who let him do that. So their relationship is twisted. It's overly sexual, which works because that's her character. And it brought the steam into the X-Men. Like the ongoing jokes of when Kitty Pryde is like, yo, jiggle tits, put them away. And she would say things like, go take your twisted, this isn't one of your twisted sex games. Save that for the bedroom. Like, everyone knew what was going on. And Emma Frost, she was above it. She didn't care.
Yeah.
Talk about it. I'm more important than you. It was just magical. And when Joss Whedon took over for Amazing X-Men, the writing was so spectacular that I would have bought anything with the two of them in it. I was a Cyclops convert, so that says something.
That says a lot, actually. Yes.
Yeah, the jiggle tits, that will always be in my head. All right, so your number 3.
My number 3 is a classic choice. There's no big surprise here. I'm going to go with Lois Lane and Superman / Clark Kent, but I am going with the Christopher Reeve Margot Kidder iteration. And I know it's kind of probably a boring and predictable choice, but I have to say it was one of my first superhero couple crushes ever. I feel like when Lois Lane is done well, she is a fantastic character to push back against Superman's Boy Scout persona. She's a great foil for Clark Kent's bumbling. She is the original strong female character, and I generally hate that phrase, but she really is. Before she got kind of fucked over in the comics in the 50s and 60s and somewhat in the 70s, she was strong. She went out, she got her story. She didn't care if anybody told her she couldn't do it. Yes, she got rescued by Superman, but she was also kind of the person that directed Superman, that told him, hey, there's stuff going on over here. And in the movies, she was just, the scene that I love the most isn't her almost falling to her death and Superman saving her, although that is kind of romantic. I love the interview on her balcony and how she's trying so much to be like that reporter, and Superman's being Superman, but you can tell he's a little flustered too. And it's just this delightful little date that they have. And, you know, the part where she asks him about his powers and his X-ray vision comes up, and she's standing behind a planter with iron in it. And so she says, what color underwear am I wearing? And he has a pause, and she's like, oh, I embarrassed you, I'm so sorry. And I love it because she could be brassy and saucy and get Superman flustered. And not everybody can do that. But at the same time, she gets him. And she never, while she pushes him, she accepts who he is. She accepts, when she finds out that Clark and Superman are the same person, she accepts those dual identities. And she doesn't expect him to have these broad changes. She does push him. She does try to give him the perspective of humanity that he, as an alien, is lacking. But she never says that he has to be human. You know, she accepts his alienness. And he, in turn, accepts her agency. The best iterations of these characters are her accepting who she is, that she is going to go out and get in danger, and that is okay. That's who Lois is. So I love it. It's a classic iteration. I would say I almost actually did Henry Cavill and Amy Adams, and even though those movies were tragic train wrecks, I did like them because they had the same dynamic. But I had to go Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve. It's just too classic.
All right. So, of course, we have way more than this. We have our 4th and 5th picks and honorable mentions. So, if you want to see who else made the cut, and
there's some interesting choices.
I think mine are more surprising than yours. I can see your train of thought. Mine gets weird. But next week or next show, we're going to be talking about the couples we ship that never happen.
Yep.
So it's going to get weird.
But if you want to see the rest of our choices, you can go to superherofiction.com, click on the podcast label on the menu, and you'll see Geekorama. And just click on the show notes and you can see the rest of our choices. Agree or disagree with us. Leave your choices in the comments. We would love to hear some of your favorite superhero couples.
So until next show, be geeky. Like we need a closing line.
Oh, we do need a closing line. We'll have to think of something. Don't forget to check out our anthology for Valentine's Day. It's on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, and it will be in paperback.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
To stay up to date with the Geekorama podcast, you can watch our videos on YouTube or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a review or hit the thumbs up button. New episodes are released on Thursdays for podcast listeners and YouTube fans.